Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's dive into today's story. After the brief, awkward exit from the restaurant, Emma walked quickly down the dimly lit street, her heart still racing. She could feel her cheeks burning with embarrassment as the cool night air hit her face. She had never been one to make mistakes like this, not in public, not in front of someone she had hoped might be different. Her footsteps quickened, as if the faster she walked, the further she could get from the humiliation that clung to her like a second skin. She wished she could disappear into the city, into the night, and pretend none of it had ever happened. But no matter how fast she walked, the nagging thought kept popping into her head. What if he had been different? What if he had been the one person who didn't see her as just another waitress, just another girl trying to make ends meet? Emma stopped at a crosswalk, her hand tightening around the strap of her bag. She glanced at her phone again, checking for any new messages. Nothing. She sighed in relief. No messages from Kevin, no more reminders of her mistake. She was free to forget about it, move on with her life, just as she always did after a disaster. But before she could take another step, her phone buzzed again. This time, it wasn't a message from Kevin. It was an email alert. A familiar name popped up on the screen, Liam Parker. Her heart skipped a beat. What was he doing emailing her? Had he tracked her down to call her out for her embarrassing mistake? A nervous laugh escaped her lips as she clicked open the email. It was short, just a few lines, but it made her stop in her tracks. Emma, I know what happened earlier was a bit of a mix-up, but I really enjoyed our conversation. I'd like to see you again, if you're interested. Maybe this time, we can get it right. Emma blinked in disbelief, reading the words again to make sure she hadn't misread them. Could it be true? Was this really happening? A part of her wanted to ignore it, to chalk it up to a moment of impulse on his part. After all, who would want to meet someone who made such a big mistake on their first date? But there was something about his words, something sincere and inviting, that made her pause. Maybe, just maybe, this was a chance for something real. She typed a quick reply, her fingers hesitating over the keyboard for a moment before she pressed send. I'd like that. Let's try again. The next day, Emma found herself standing at the door of a small, quiet cafe, her heart fluttering with a mix of excitement and nervousness. She was early, which was unusual for her. She had always been punctual, but this time felt different. This time, she wasn't just meeting anyone. She was meeting the man she had mistakenly walked out on the night before. When Liam arrived, he was just as she remembered, tall, impeccably dressed, and with that same quiet confidence. He smiled when he saw her, a genuine, warm smile that made her feel a little less like the awkward mess she had been the night before. Hey, he said, his voice smooth and easy. I'm glad you came. Emma felt a blush creeping up her neck, but she managed to smile back. I'm glad too, she replied, taking a seat across from him. They sat in comfortable silence for a moment, each of them unsure of where to begin. Then Liam broke the quiet, his voice soft but purposeful. I know last night was unexpected. I wasn't exactly prepared for someone like you. Emma looked up at him, a bit puzzled. What do you mean? She asked. Liam smiled, a glint of amusement in his eyes. I mean, you're nothing like anyone I usually meet. You're real. You're not trying to impress anyone or play some game. I like that. Emma's heart skipped a beat at his words. It wasn't something she heard often, especially from someone like Liam. Emma shifted in her seat, her nerves still present but less intense now. She couldn't quite explain it, but there was something about him that put her at ease. Maybe it was the way he looked. At her, like he actually saw her, not just the waitress at the table. I didn't mean to embarrass myself last night, she said softly, her voice laced with the faintest hint of vulnerability. It's just that I've never really felt like I belonged in places like that. Liam nodded, his gaze understanding. You don't have to belong anywhere except where you are, Emma. You're good enough just as you are. His words, simple and kind, caught her off guard. She hadn't expected such warmth from him, especially after the awkwardness of their first meeting. The conversation shifted after that, flowing more naturally as they talked about their lives. Emma shared her dreams of opening an art studio one day, and Liam listened intently, asking questions, offering encouragement. They talked about their families, their struggles, and the things that made them who they were. And by the time they finished their coffee, Emma felt a connection to him that went beyond anything she had experienced before. It wasn't just about the mistake they had made the night before. It was about the way they made each other feel, the way they both seemed to want more than just a casual chat. As they stood to leave, Liam paused for a moment, looking at her with something more than simple politeness in his eyes. "I'm glad we tried this again, Emma. I think it's the start of something good." Emma smiled, feeling a warmth spread through her chest. "Me too," she said quietly. "Let's see where it goes." And as they walked out into the bright morning, it felt like the beginning of something more, something real. It had been 2 weeks since Emma and Liam had their second chance at their awkward blind date, and things had only gotten more confusing for Emma. Each time they met, it felt easier, more natural. They spent time together at cozy cafes, wandered through art galleries, and even went to a small charity event. But the connection they had was more than just the typical dating kind. There was something deeper, something Emma couldn't quite put her finger on. She felt like she was beginning to understand Liam, but there was still so much she didn't know about him. One evening, after a particularly nice dinner at a quiet bistro, Emma sat in the passenger seat of Liam's car, staring out of the window at the passing city lights. She had grown so accustomed to the way Liam made her feel, special, important, like someone who mattered. But there was always something unsaid, something about him that he kept hidden. She had noticed it before, in the way he would glance away when she asked certain questions or change the subject when things got too personal. Liam turned to her, his fingers gripping the steering wheel slightly tighter. "You seem quiet tonight," he remarked, his voice soft, but with a hint of concern. Emma smiled faintly, shrugging. "Just thinking." She didn't know how to explain the knot in her stomach, the growing feeling that maybe this connection was too good to be true. She glanced at him, her gaze meeting his. "Liam," she started, her voice tentative. "You've been so kind to me, and I can't help but feel like there's more to you than you let on. You're always so guarded when it comes to your personal life. What's going on?" Liam's jaw tightened slightly at her words, and for a moment, he didn't answer. The air in the car seemed to thicken, and Emma could feel her heartbeat picking up its pace. She wasn't sure if she had crossed a line, but she needed to know. She needed to understand him more, to feel like she was a part of his world. Liam took a deep breath, his eyes flicking to the road ahead. "There are things I can't just open up about," he said, his voice low. "Not because I don't want to share them, but because it's complicated. My life, the way I've lived, it's not something I can just explain over a dinner or a cup of coffee." Emma listened intently, her heart sinking at his words. She didn't know what he was hiding, but the weight of his secrecy hung in the air between them. For a moment, there was silence in the car, and Emma wrestled with her thoughts. She wasn't sure whether to push further or to respect his boundaries. But the part of her that had been so open and trusting with him wouldn't let go. "I just want you to know, Liam," she said quietly, "that I'm here. Whatever it is, you don't have to hide it from me." She reached over and gently placed her hand on his, and for the first time in their time together, he didn't pull away. Instead, he gave her a small, almost imperceptible nod. The rest of the drive was quiet, but there was an unspoken understanding between them now. The distance that had once been there, the wall he had built around himself, felt just a little bit thinner. Emma could feel the connection growing stronger, but she knew they still had a long way to go. The next day, as Emma walked into the cafe where they had agreed to meet, she saw Liam sitting at their usual table, his gaze focused on something in front of him. As she approached, she noticed the serious expression on his face. He looked up when she sat down, his eyes reflecting something she hadn't seen before, a mixture of uncertainty and determination. "I've been thinking a lot, Emma," he said, his voice steady. "I owe you more than what I've given you so far. I've been hiding parts of myself because I didn't want to drag you into my mess. But the truth is, I'm not sure I can keep hiding forever." His words hit Emma harder than she expected, and she felt her pulse quicken. Before she could say anything, Liam continued, "I know you're probably wondering why I've been so distant, why I've avoided talking about my past. It's because I'm scared. I'm scared that if you knew the full truth, you wouldn't want anything to do with me." Emma leaned forward, her eyes fixed on his, her heart aching with the weight of his confession. "Liam, whatever it is, I want to hear it. I'm not going anywhere." She took his hand, squeezing it gently. You don't have to do this alone. Liam looked at her, and for the first time, she saw a flicker of vulnerability in his eyes. He nodded slowly, taking a deep breath before finally speaking. It's my family, Emma. They've been pressuring me for years, trying to control my life, my business, everything. And when I refused to follow their plans, they turned on me. They tried to tear me down, ruin everything I worked for. I've been fighting them, trying to keep my independence, but it's been hard. Emma felt her heart soften as she listened to his words. She had no idea how difficult his life had been, how much he had been carrying. I didn't want to drag you into all of that, Liam finished, his voice barely above a whisper. But now, I don't want to hide from you anymore. I want you to be a part of my life, even if it's complicated. Emma smiled, a gentle, reassuring smile. We'll face whatever comes together, she said softly. And in that moment, something shifted between them. The weight of his secret was no longer something to be carried alone. It was a shared burden now, one that neither of them had to face in isolation. After their conversation, Emma could feel a shift in the air between her and Liam. The walls he had built up were slowly coming down, and it was as if, for the first time, she truly understood the weight he had been carrying. But even with that understanding, there was still a quiet tension that lingered, as if neither of them knew exactly how to move forward from here. Over the next few days, they continued to spend time together, but something was different. Emma found herself growing more attached to him, more invested in their connection. She wanted to help him, to show him that he didn't have to face his demons alone. But she also feared that the more she got involved, the harder it would be to walk away if things didn't work out. One rainy afternoon, Emma was walking down the street, her coat pulled tight against the chill, when her phone buzzed. She pulled it out of her pocket, surprised to see a message from Liam. Can we talk? I need to tell you something. Her heart skipped a beat, and without thinking, she quickly replied, Of course. Where? The reply came almost instantly. Meet me at the park in an hour. She glanced at the dark clouds above, feeling a twinge of anxiety as she wondered what he could possibly need to talk about. Was it more of the same? More about his family and the pressure he felt? Or was it something new? As she walked to the park, the rain began to fall harder, but Emma didn't care. She had learned to trust Liam, but the nagging feeling in the pit of her stomach wouldn't go away. She arrived at the park to find him standing under the shelter of a tree, his coat drenched from the rain. He looked up as she approached, his face serious. But there was something in his eyes, something that made her heart ache. Liam, what's going on? She asked softly, her voice filled with concern. He hesitated for a moment, then stepped toward her. Emma, I've been thinking a lot, he began, his voice quiet, but with a sense of urgency. About everything. About us. About what I've been hiding. He paused, his eyes searching hers as if looking for some kind of reassurance. Emma felt a lump form in her throat. She could sense the weight in his words, the fear that maybe what he was about to say would change everything. She reached out, taking his hand in hers, offering him a comforting touch. You don't have to keep hiding, Liam, she said softly. Whatever it is, I'm here. He swallowed hard, his gaze falling to their hands before meeting her eyes again. It's not just my family, Emma, he confessed, his voice barely above a whisper. There's more. I've been keeping a secret from you, and it's something I should have told you a long time ago. Emma's heart raced as she tried to make sense of his words. What secret? She asked, her voice trembling. I'm not just some tech entrepreneur, Emma. I'm the CEO of a massive corporation. And my family, they want me to take over the business, to follow their path. But I've been fighting them every step of the way. They want me to get married, to seal the deal, to play their game. He let out a bitter laugh, shaking his head. But that's not me. I don't want to live their life. I don't want to be part of their world. Emma's mind was spinning. She had no idea Liam was involved in such a high-profile world, and the fact that he had kept it from her left her feeling more confused than ever. But she could see the pain in his eyes, the struggle he had been facing. She reached up and gently cupped his face, forcing him to meet her gaze. You don't have to follow anyone's path but your own, she said, her voice firm but filled with compassion. If you're happy being who you are, that's what matters. You don't owe anyone anything, not even your family. Liam closed his eyes for a moment, as if letting her words sink in. He took a deep breath and finally spoke. I don't know if I can keep fighting them, Emma. But being with you, I feel like I have the strength to try. You make me want to be the person I've always been too afraid to be. Emma felt a warmth spread through her chest as she listened to his words. In that moment, everything she had been uncertain about, everything that had been weighing on her, seemed to fall into place. You don't have to fight alone, she said softly. We'll figure it out together. I'm here for you. The rain had stopped by the time they sat down on a nearby bench, the quiet park now bathed in the soft glow of streetlights. Liam leaned his head back against the bench, looking up at the stars beginning to emerge in the sky. Emma sat beside him, her heart still racing from the vulnerability he had just shown her. She had never expected their journey to take this turn, but somehow, it felt like they were finally on the same page. They sat there for a while, not saying much, just being in each other's company. And for the first time since they had met, Emma felt a sense of peace. She wasn't sure where this path would take them, but she knew one thing for sure. They were in it together. As they left the park, walking side by side, Emma couldn't help but smile. There were still challenges ahead, but she was ready to face them with Liam by her side. The days that followed felt different for Emma and Liam. There was a new sense of openness between them, a trust that had been built through their shared vulnerability. They began spending more time together, talking about their pasts, their hopes for the future, and the obstacles they faced. But even as they grew closer, Emma couldn't shake the feeling that something still lingered in the air between them. Liam had opened up about his family's pressure, about his struggles with his role in the business world, but she could sense there was more. He had mentioned that he was fighting against a future that wasn't his own, but Emma knew deep down that the weight of it all was more than he had let on. One evening, after a particularly long day at work, Emma returned to her small apartment, feeling the exhaustion weigh down on her shoulders. The rain had started to fall again, the gentle pitter-patter on her window serving as a calming backdrop to her thoughts. She thought about Liam and how far they had come, but she also wondered how much longer he could keep running from his family's expectations. She knew he was struggling with the idea of choosing between them and his own happiness, and the thought made her heart ache. Was she ready to stand by him, no matter what decision he made? Was she strong enough to handle the weight of his world and still find a way to be together? Her phone buzzed, pulling her from her thoughts. It was a message from Liam. Meet me at the cafe? I need to talk to you about something. Emma felt a wave of unease wash over her. What was it this time? Another revelation about his family? A new challenge he had to face? She quickly put on her coat and made her way out the door, her thoughts racing as she walked to the cafe they had frequented together. When she arrived, Liam was already there, sitting at their usual corner table. He looked up as she walked in, his expression unreadable. Hey, Emma said softly, sitting down across from him. What's going on? Liam hesitated for a moment, his fingers tapping nervously on the table. He looked at her, his gaze filled with a mix of regret and determination. I've been thinking a lot about everything, Emma, he said quietly. About my family, my life, my future, and about us. I know I've kept a lot from you, and I'm sorry for that. I've been trying to protect you from it all, but the truth is, I can't keep running from it anymore. Emma's heart pounded in her chest. She had been waiting for this moment, for him to finally lay it all out, but she wasn't sure if she was ready for the weight of it. What is it, Liam? She asked gently, her voice steady but filled with concern. What are you holding back? Liam took a deep breath and looked her in the eyes, as if summoning the courage to speak the words that had been on his mind for so long. I'm not just running from my family's expectations anymore, he said, his voice low. I'm running from myself. I've spent so much time trying to be the person they want me to be that I've lost sight of who I really am. I've been living a lie, Emma, and I don't know how to stop. His voice cracked at the end, and Emma felt a sharp pang in her chest. She reached out, taking his hand in hers. You don't have to do this alone, she said softly, squeezing his hand. Whatever you decide, I'm here for you. You don't need to fight this battle by yourself. I believe in you, Liam, and I want you to believe in yourself too. Liam's eyes softened as he looked at her, and for the first time, Emma saw the weight of his struggles in his expression. The walls he had built up for so long were starting to crumble, and she knew this was the moment when everything could change. I don't know if I can do it, he whispered. I don't know if I'm strong enough to face them, to face my own fears. Emma leaned forward, her heart aching for him. You're stronger than you think, Liam, she said with conviction. And you don't have to do it alone. We'll figure it out together. We'll take it one step at a time, And no matter what happens, we'll face it as a team. Liam's lips trembled slightly as he took in her words. For a moment, he just stared at her, as if trying to process the fact that she was offering him something he had never dared to hope for. Unwavering support, a love that didn't come with conditions. Slowly, he nodded, his voice barely above a whisper. "Thank you, Emma," he said softly. "I don't know what I would do without you." Emma smiled gently, her heart full. She wasn't sure where their journey would take them, but she knew one thing for sure. They would face it together, no matter how difficult the road ahead might be. As they sat in the cafe, the rain outside continuing to fall, Emma felt a sense of calm settle over her. The future was uncertain, but for the first time in a long while, she felt at peace with it. She wasn't alone anymore, and neither was Liam. The next few days were filled with a new sense of calm for Emma and Liam. After their heart-to-heart conversation, things between them had shifted. Emma could feel the weight of Liam's struggles lifting, little by little, with each passing day. She was there for him, supporting him through the difficult decisions he had to make. And although Liam wasn't ready to fully confront his family just yet, he was taking the first steps toward reclaiming his life, and Emma was proud of him. They spent more time together, but this time it felt different. Liam was opening up in ways he never had before, sharing small pieces of himself that he had kept hidden for so long. Emma could see the change in him, the way he no longer carried the weight of his family's expectations so heavily. And with each conversation, with each quiet moment they shared, Emma felt more connected to him. The distance that had once been between them had faded, replaced by a deep, understanding closeness. One evening, as they walked down the city streets after dinner, Emma felt the cool evening air brush against her face. Liam was beside her, his hand brushing against hers. They didn't say much, but there was a comfortable silence between them, the kind that only comes from truly knowing someone. As they neared the entrance to her apartment building, Liam stopped and turned to face her, his eyes serious yet gentle. "Emma, there's something I need to ask you," he said, his voice low. Emma looked up at him, curiosity piqued. She could see the vulnerability in his eyes, and it made her heart beat a little faster. "What is it?" she asked, her voice soft. Liam hesitated for a moment, then took a deep breath. "I've been thinking a lot about what you said the other night," he began. "About us doing this together. And I realized something. I don't want to keep living in fear. I don't want to let my past or my family control me anymore. I want to build something real. Something with you." Emma's heart skipped a beat, and for a moment, she wasn't sure if she had heard him correctly. "Liam, what are you saying?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Liam smiled softly, his hand reaching out to gently hold hers. "What I'm saying is, I want to be with you, Emma. Not just because it's easy or convenient, but because I believe in what we have. I believe in you. And I want to take this step with you. No more hiding, no more running. I want to build a future with you." Emma's breath caught in her throat as she took in his words. She had never expected him to say something like this, something so raw, so honest. She looked up at him, searching his face for any hint of doubt, but all she saw was certainty. And in that moment, she realized that she felt the same way. She didn't want to live a life where fear dictated her choices. She didn't want to hide anymore, either. "I want that too, Liam," she said, her voice trembling slightly with emotion. "I've never been more sure of anything in my life. We can do this, together." She reached up, cupping his face in her hands, her heart full. "We'll face whatever comes next, no matter what." Liam's expression softened, and he leaned down, pressing a gentle kiss to her forehead. "Together," he whispered. And for the first time, Emma felt like the future was full of possibilities. They had come so far, both of them, but there was still so much more ahead. And whatever it was, she knew they would face it side by side. The next day, as Emma and Liam met for lunch at the same cafe they had visited weeks ago, Emma could see the change in him. He seemed lighter, more at ease, like the burden he had carried for so long was finally starting to lift. He had a quiet confidence about him now, a sense of purpose that hadn't been there before. They talked about everything, his business, her art, their dreams for the future, and for the first time in a long while, Emma felt like they were both on the same page. Later that evening, after they had walked through the park near her apartment, Liam stopped again, turning to her with a smile. "I want to show you something," he said. Emma raised an eyebrow, intrigued. He took her hand and led her to a small, quiet spot by the water, where a bench overlooked the city skyline. "This is where I've been coming to think," he said quietly. "When everything gets overwhelming, this is where I come to clear my head." They sat on the bench together, watching the lights of the city twinkle in the distance. "It's beautiful," Emma said softly, leaning against him. "It's perfect," Liam replied. And as they sat there in the calm of the evening, Emma realized that no matter what challenges lay ahead, this moment, this feeling of peace and connection, was all that mattered. They had made it this far, and together, they could face anything. The future was still uncertain, but one thing was clear: whatever happened next, they would face it as a team. The days after their conversation by the park seemed to pass in a blur, each moment bringing them closer together, yet with new challenges on the horizon. Emma noticed the change in Liam. He was more open, more grounded, but the tension in his eyes was still there, buried beneath his calm exterior. He had made a decision, but she could tell he wasn't completely at peace with it yet. She couldn't blame him. After all, the road ahead was never going to be easy, especially with a family like his. The weight of his decisions still loomed over him, but he had made it clear that he was willing to face them. And Emma would be right there by his side. It was a Tuesday afternoon when Liam invited Emma to a charity gala, an event he had been trying to avoid for weeks. His family would be there, his father, his brothers, all the people who had tried to shape his life in ways that never fit. Emma could see the nerves in his eyes as he spoke about it, but there was also a sense of resolve. He wasn't going to let them dictate his future anymore. "I don't know what's going to happen tonight," Liam said as they stood together in the parking lot, his hand resting on the door of his car. "But I need you there with me, Emma. I'm not sure I can do this alone." Emma nodded, her heart swelling with affection. "You're not alone, Liam. Not anymore." She took his hand, giving it a gentle squeeze. "Whatever happens tonight, we'll face it together. You don't have to carry it all on your own." They arrived at the gala, the grand ballroom of the event center filled with glittering lights and the soft murmur of high society. Emma's heart was racing, not because she felt out of place, but because she could see how much this meant to Liam. This was his chance to take a stand, to show his family that he was no longer the son they could control. As they entered the room, Liam's gaze immediately sought out his father, who stood with a group of powerful business figures. The tension in Liam's posture was palpable, but he stood tall beside Emma, determined not to show his fear. As they made their way through the crowd, Liam's father spotted them, his gaze hard and calculating. Liam's brothers followed suit, their eyes narrowing at the sight of Emma. But Liam didn't flinch. He walked forward, his head held high. "Liam," his father said, his voice like ice. "I see you've brought the waitress with you." Emma's heart skipped a beat at the sharpness in his words, but Liam didn't waver. "Her name is Emma," Liam replied, his voice steady but firm. "And she's more than just a waitress. She's the woman I'm choosing to be with." There was a long pause before Liam's father spoke again, his lips curled into a thin smile. "I see," his father said, his tone laced with condescension. "Well, good luck with that." And with that, he turned and walked away, leaving Liam and Emma standing there. Emma felt a wave of anger rise within her, but she glanced at Liam, who was staring after his father with a mixture of disappointment and determination. "You did it," she said softly. "You stood your ground." Liam looked down at her, a small smile tugging at the corner of his lips. "I couldn't have done it without you," he said quietly. "Thank you for being here with me." Emma's heart melted at the sincerity in his voice. She reached up to gently touch his cheek, her fingers brushing against his skin. "I'll always be here," she whispered. "No matter what happens next, we're in this together." The night wasn't easy. There were glances, whispers, and more moments of tension, but Liam never backed down. With Emma by his side, he faced his family and their expectations, and for the first time, he felt a sense of freedom. By the end of the night, it wasn't about winning their approval. It was about standing up for what he believed in, for the life he wanted to create with Emma. As they left the gala, hand in hand, Liam squeezed Emma's fingers. "We did it," he said, a sense of relief washing over him. "We're not just surviving anymore. We're living." Emma smiled up at him, her heart full. "And we're going to make it work. Together." The road ahead was still uncertain, but as they walked into the night, Emma knew one thing for sure. With Liam, there was nothing they couldn't face. The days after the gala felt like a new chapter for Emma and Liam. The tension that had hung over them for so long had started to lift, but there was still work to be done. They both knew that facing Liam's family had only been the beginning. It wasn't just about the approval of his father or brothers. It was about carving out a life together, one where they made their own rules, their own choices. Emma could see the determination in Liam's eyes now, a kind of peace that hadn't been there before. He was no longer hiding, no longer living in the shadow of his family's expectations. He was choosing his own path, and she was choosing to walk it with him. But even as they grew closer, Emma couldn't shake the feeling that they were standing at the edge of something bigger. There was still the reality of Liam's business, the one he had inherited, the one that tied him to the very people he was trying to escape. Despite his newfound resolve, the weight of the company was a constant reminder of what he had been born into, of the future that was still looming over him. They had talked about it before, about Liam stepping away from the family business, but every time the conversation came up, there was a sense of hesitation in his voice. One afternoon, as they sat in the park, enjoying the warm sunlight that filtered through the trees, Emma watched Liam as he stared off into the distance, his fingers absent-mindedly tracing patterns on the bench. She could tell that something was weighing on him again. "What's going on, Liam?" Emma asked softly, her voice gentle. "You've been quiet lately." He sighed, running a hand through his hair, and looked at her, his expression serious. "I've been thinking about the company again," he said, his voice low. "I've made the decision to step away, to stop letting it define me. But every time I try to take that step, I feel like I'm being pulled back. My family, they want me to take control. They want me to carry on their legacy." Emma reached out, taking his hand in hers. "You've already made your decision, Liam. You've chosen your path, and that's what matters. You don't have to keep living up to their expectations. You don't owe them anything." He looked at her, his eyes filled with uncertainty. "I know you're right, but sometimes it feels like it's too big to escape. The company, my family, it's all intertwined. And if I walk away, there's so much at stake. I could lose everything I've worked for." Emma squeezed his hand, her heart aching for him. "You haven't lost anything yet, Liam. You're not defined by the company. You're defined by the choices you make, by the person you are. And I believe in you. I believe in us." Liam's eyes softened as he gazed at her, his heart full of gratitude. "Thank you, Emma," he whispered. "I don't know what I would do without you." They sat in silence for a moment, the weight of his words hanging in the air between them. But as Emma looked at Liam, she saw the shift in him, the way he was starting to believe in himself again. And that belief was stronger than anything his family could ever impose on him. "You don't have to make this decision alone," Emma said softly. "Whatever happens, we'll figure it out together. We've already come so far." The breeze picked up, and Liam turned his head slightly, catching a glimpse of the horizon. "Together," he repeated, his voice filled with conviction. "I'm ready, Emma. I'm ready to take control of my life." And for the first time, Emma believed him. The road ahead would not be easy, but they would walk it side by side, no matter where it took them. There was no turning back now, only forward. That evening, as they sat together in her apartment, Emma leaned her head on Liam's shoulder, feeling the warmth of his presence. They didn't have all the answers yet, but they had each other, and that was enough. The future was still uncertain, but they had finally found the courage to face it, one step at a time. The weeks that followed brought a new sense of calm and purpose to Emma and Liam's lives. The weight of Liam's family and business had not disappeared entirely, but he had begun to take control of his own path. With Emma by his side, he felt stronger, more certain about the choices he was making. Every day, they grew closer, building a life together, one that was no longer shaped by external pressures, but by the love and trust they shared. One afternoon, after a particularly long day of work, Liam took Emma by surprise with an invitation to dinner. They had made a habit of keeping things simple, going to their favorite spots, and enjoying each other's company without the weight of the world on their shoulders. But tonight, Liam had something different planned. As they arrived at a small restaurant by the waterfront, Emma was struck by how beautiful it looked. Soft lights flickered along the edge of the water, casting a warm glow over the space. Liam smiled at her as they walked in, his hand gently resting on the small of her back. "I thought we could try something new tonight," he said, leading her to a quiet table by the window. Emma could feel the excitement building in her chest, but she tried to keep her emotions in check. There was something in the air tonight, something that felt different, as if this moment was marking the start of something new. As they sat down, Liam looked at her, his expression filled with warmth. Emma, I've been thinking about everything that's happened. About how far we've come, about the life we're building together. I know it hasn't been easy, but I wouldn't change a thing. I want to keep moving forward with you, through all of it. You make me want to be the best version of myself. Emma's heart swelled with affection as she listened to his words. I feel the same way, Liam, she said, her voice thick with emotion. We've been through so much, and I wouldn't want to face any of it with anyone else but you. They shared a quiet moment, their hands intertwined on the table. The soft hum of the restaurant filled the background, but all Emma could focus on was the man sitting across from her, the man who had come to mean so much. She had never imagined that her life could change so drastically in such a short time, but with Liam, it had. And for the first time, she truly believed in their future. After dinner, Liam took her outside, where the cool evening air greeted them. As they walked along the water, the moonlight reflecting off the surface, Liam stopped and turned to her. His eyes were filled with emotion as he reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. Emma's heart skipped a beat as he opened it, revealing a simple yet elegant ring. Emma, he said, his voice steady but filled with warmth. This is just the beginning for us. You've shown me that there's more to life than the things I've been chasing for so long. You've taught me what real love is, and I want to spend the rest of my life with you. Will you marry me? Emma's breath caught in her throat as she looked at him, the man who had walked through fire to be with her. Her heart swelled with love, and without a second thought, she whispered, Yes. Yes, I will. As Liam slipped the ring onto her finger, the world seemed to stand still. It wasn't just about the ring or the proposal. It was about everything they had overcome together. It was about the trust they had built, the love they had nurtured, and the life they were about to create. They had made it through the hardest part, and now they were ready for whatever came next. As they embraced, the sound of the water crashing against the shore echoed in the distance, a reminder of how far they had come. Together, they had faced the challenges, the doubts, and the fears, and they had come out stronger on the other side. The future was no longer something to fear. It was something they would face together, hand in hand, for the rest of their lives.